Commissioner Lawrence,
Here.
Commissioner Paris,
Present.
Commissioner Setzer,
Here.
Commissioner Ditgen,
Present.
Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Okay, let's please have the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't believe we have any presentations or public comments, no public in the audience to make comments, so we'll proceed with our staff reports. Mike?
Thank you. The budget is included in your packet, and feel free to follow along. Wanted to just highlight a couple of items. The first item, the Memorial Park mural, Jacob Duncan did submit his final invoice. He has completed all work at the mural, and so I believe his last step that he took, actually he did this past Saturday. So while we were at Summer Scene, he was out working at the mural, and he put a final kind of glaze coat. But it's not a glossy coat or anything, but what it'll do is protect the artwork that he had placed down, so that if there's anyone that goes out there and graffitis it or vandalizes it, our Parks Department will be able to just power wash that graffiti or that vandalism off, rather than so it won't damage the artwork itself. Jacob has also agreed, as part of his contract, he'll come out for a year, 1 year following if any damage is done to the mural, and he'll do any kind of touch-up work. So if something doesn't work with that glaze, we'll be able to go back and make sure that gets fixed.
Excuse me, Mike, may I ask a question? Are there security cameras on the building? I mean, if, God forbid, something there's film in those cameras that's rolling 24/7.
Right, so if you'll notice, if you're looking at the mural, in the upper right-hand corner is actually one of the security cameras that covers that entrance to the park as well as the mural.
Okay.
The rest of the building does also have other security cameras for the rest of the concession stand. All of those are monitored by the police department, and those are all digital, and so we have all of those records, and so if anything were to happen, we would have that video.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Bob?
Mike, does Jacob know how long the glaze will last, or the protectorant will last?
Should be 5 years, and then all he would need to do, either our parks maintenance crew is familiar with the product that he used, or he said he'd be more than happy to come out and rework it as well.
Thank you.
The other items I wanted to also point out on the budget, we do have the final numbers for Summer Scene as well as the pop-up art project, along with what I wanted to point out was, in the actual column of those two items, you will see what was spent on those two projects. In the status, in that final column, you'll see what was brought in through the vendor booth fees, as well as folks that purchased the chairs that we sold here at City Hall. And so while I just kind of wanted to point that out and make that clear, that actual column is what we spent, that far right column is what we received in revenue and will have placed in a revenue account in the foundation for future programming if we so wish to use that money.
I know we sold water there, I'm sure it wasn't a lot of money, but do we know what we made off of any sales from that?
It was roughly $60.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the booth rentals and the chair sales go from the revenue account into the foundation, so that's a fundraising activity?
Correct.
Okay. And are we, the 4,329 is that an accurate number through Saturday, or is there more invoices to come in, expense money to
That
be
should be
spent?
the final total. Any other expenses that do come in, we'll want to budget those separately. Anything that gets added from here on out, I mean, we can add to that total line, but really all expenses should be finished and in for this event.
Why would we not put the final expense numbers in the budget for this year under that category? I guess I'm misunderstanding
That 4,329 is the final final expense, when we
Oh.
close the books on Summer Scene, no more expenses should be coming out.
Okay, so you're,
If for some reason there is an expense that maybe we did not anticipate,
Right.
or a bill that we just did not see at the time, we would need to address that again, and we would place that in that line item.
okay, and there was something else. Oh, in the actual column, these numbers, obviously the budgeted number in categories such as the Memorial Park community, we budgeted 2,000. Obviously, that number is unknown yet. Same with Family Art Days, where it shows we're well under budget, but these numbers obviously go through October 31st. So while it looks like we have almost $7,000 spending to spend, we really don't, because we don't know what the final numbers are going to be in any of these columns yet.
What currently, so with the Memorial Park community item, that was an incentive for the artist that we selected to include a community engagement or some kind of an educational component. Jacob decided not to include that as part of the mural, and so that $2,000 will be unspent.
Okay.
So that will just go into essentially our fund balance. Same thing with down below. Another thing I wanted to point out is under other, we had an additional $1,000 that we could have placed towards social media or the foundation the foundation formation. The communications department took on all of the fees for the foundation formation, so there is an additional $1,000 that has not been directly budgeted to a line item that also will be part of the fund balance for the Arts Commission. Really, the only things we don't know for certain is if there's any classes or programmings for adults or future family art days that we'll want to put some of our funds toward. That really, those are the only unknowns. And so if there's anything, because our farmers market sponsorship is already spent, the TCAL art contest, we're pretty certain will be $600 come fall. Those really are the only two areas that I think there would be any flexibility going forward.
All right, so to clarify, so we do have, in round numbers, 6,000 plus that we have unallocated at this time, and so we could, if none of these numbers change, is that correct?
That is correct. The current fund, the current balance that the Arts Commission has is that $6,966.
Right, but if we spend $600 for the TCAL art contest, that's going to reduce that number if we
Correct.
spend. I'm just trying to get a flavor for what we think we might actually have left.
My understanding is that we have $3,000 right now that is not marked for anything.
Correct. That is,
Right.
And
So-
what you'll notice in that budgeted column, that $750 is what is completely unbudgeted for. So we had $750 that we did not budget towards anything. And to a certain extent, and not to muddy the waters too much, but that $1,000 under the other category was another $1,000 that we really didn't budget anything towards. We had anticipated social media and the foundation, but we know those things are being taken on by another department. So really, there's a $1,750 for sure that we know is not budgeted towards a current project. But then, kind of to your comment, Commissioner, absolutely, you are correct. There's a roughly $3,000, and we can prepare a separate projection if we were to spend all of the money on the currently planned projects going forward. And then I think you might get kind of a different picture of, yes, we have that 2,000 that we will not be spending on an educational component for the mural because that project is completed. So then that roughly puts us at $3,750 in our fund balance.
So that is some money that we can talk about and possibly come up with another event or take one of these other categories and add money to that category.
Absolutely.
Harriet?
What about the 3 concerts? The concerts at Centerview?
So the 3 concerts, we had already planned through the programming and had already counted that towards the adult programming. So that $600 was what the Arts Commission had allocated 2 meetings ago, I believe.
Right.
We already count that under the class programming for adults.
So that $1,500 in $694 has already been spent on the paint and sip party, but the other additional 600 will come out, be an additional 600, so we will have spent the $1,500 roughly.
Correct.
Okay. And the third concert, we were not paying for in any way,
Correct.
right? Pat?
When we had our work session in May, we discussed the fact that our citizens were very interested in music, and I brought up the idea of a community sing-along. I have further investigated that and worked with some people that are local, and we're trying to figure out venues and places, and we've made quite a bit of progress. The problem right now is the fact that in June there are choir conventions that they have to attend and a bunch of things, so we don't have everything nailed down, but I'm hoping by the time we get to July, I can give you an idea of what that would be. We have two concerts, 2 venues we're working on, and there might be an opportunity for this commission to help support those. We've also been working from the end of, we could just do it if you were out of money, but if you could help us, that would be great. But that would be something that would be an all-call to everybody, mostly adult, because kids do lots of stuff, but one that's centered mostly around older citizens in a venue that would be very easy for them to get to, and the other using a church that would donate, but we need to have a way to get music into people's hands, words for people who have forgotten words, and an accompanist, and we've got a couple people willing to help run this. So I didn't drop the ball. I've been working on it. I just doing it by myself. But that would be certainly a place where we would appreciate some support.
Thank you. I think that'll be something we can put into the Performing Arts committee as a possible thing, but I just want everybody to realize we do have money that we can spend, so if you have other ideas in addition to what Pat just mentioned, let's start thinking quickly, because October 31st will come quickly, and that's fiscal year end, and the money's gone after that, so. Mike, did you have anything else on that budget?
No, and I just wanted to point out the advantage of our revenue account going toward the foundation is we don't have to feel the pressure of spending the revenue that we bring in either through classes, through the chair sales, or through summer scene vendor booth fees. So those will be donated to the foundation. Those will go into a restricted fund, and so those won't go away. So we'll be able to retain those into the future, next fiscal year, or even further if there's something that we wanted to earmark those specifically for going forward.
And just quickly, has anything happened with the foundation as far as, have they had a first meeting yet, or?
The most recent meeting was when the foundation board met, and I have to remember it had to have been about 2 months ago, and they were adopting just some kind of legal policies. Everything is up and running. We have a logo and letterhead and everything going forward, and we're looking forward to connecting it with a project that we have coming down the pipe here in the next month or so. And so you'll be seeing a lot more about the foundation from the city side here in the coming months, and we'll definitely have some news there.
Well, that would be great, because I think the residents of the community need to know about it. I mean, because otherwise it's going to be kind of hard to sell folks on the idea of contributing to a foundation if they don't know about it. So that's great. Are there any other questions for Mike on the budget from the commissioners? Okay,
Very good.
thank you, Mike. Who's going to give the summer scene update? Melissa?
Well, most of you were there, so you know that there was a pretty good turnout. I'm horrible at estimating people, but I mean, I think it has to be at least double the amount of people of last year, and obviously like triple the amount of vendors. So there's always things that like I know that we could do differently next year or better next year, but overall, I think it was a really great success. And I know that several of our council members were there and they had a good time with their families. And overall, I mean, I think it was great. So that's my update.
Mike?
If you do get a chance to watch last night's city council meeting, I would recommend it. The council members were very complimentary of the Arts Commission and the work that everyone had put into Summer Scene. Also cannot state loudly enough how complimentary they were of Ms. McGee and the work that she had done. I mean, really cannot, you know, I mean, even I can't understate the work that she did and that she put into Summer Scene to make it a success this year. It was incredibly nice to be able to hand that off to someone new for some new ideas, but also it was very rewarding to kind of see all of what seemed to be these individual little threads we pull throughout the year come together into such a great event that she had put on for everyone. And so I want to thank you all for volunteering, participating, and supporting, but also to thank her for the work that she did on that event.
I would agree, and also just a special shout out to Lauren for his hip hop class. I think it was very well received. I think there were a couple people who wished it had gone a little longer, but I really appreciate your participation there. And all those who came, I was very pleased. Just a couple questions. For you, Melissa, do we send out a vendor feedback sheet for the...
I am creating a survey right now.
Okay, good. Because I think that's very important. Also, if, I don't know if there's a way we can put something on Facebook that says feedback is welcome about the Summer Scene. Is there something that you really liked? Is there something you'd like to see next year? I'd really like to get input from the community as well. But overall, I mean, it was super, and I really, you know, appreciate your hard work, because it was a lot of hard work. So, so I look forward to seeing more pictures on Facebook too. I'm assuming you have more to go. Oh, you did? Oh, well, then I missed them. I'll have to get
I
on
was
there.
kind of running around
Oh, okay.
a lot.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for Bob?
Also, do we have a way to express any, not concerns, but feedback for some of our vendors? For instance, Southland came out and did a great job, but they left almost too early, and we got a lot more kids started showing up, and I'm sure they would have just cleaned up showing them how to play those musical instruments.
Yeah, we did just have an agreement for 2 hours, and that's what we paid them for. And they said they might have, prior to the event, they said, depending on who was there, they might have stayed. But when I was there at 6 o'clock, there was one girl there. So, I mean, and it was hot and,
Yeah.
you know.
Okay.
Well, I think, you know, obviously, as we proceed to think about next year's event, not only talk about the venue, participation, the pop-up art project, there's a lot to consider, but it just seems to keep growing each year, so that's a good thing. So, again, thank you very much. Oh, Harriet.
So have we fleshed out the idea of the auction for the chairs?
Yes. So to my left, you're right, what I have over here are thank you letters for everyone who participated in the Adirondack Chair, the pop-up art project. I will need all of the members of the Public Art Committee to help sign some of these letters, as well as certificates for those that said that they were youth participants. So we'll have certificates as well as gift cards that go to those. In the letter, it is asking both the adults and our youth participants if they would be interested in donating their chair to be part of an auction in the fall. Our plan is to participate in the Raymore Fall Festival, and so that we would still have the chairs available on display throughout the summer, but come fall, if they were interested in donating their chair, we would again have them on display at the Fall Festival and would have almost a silent auction there during the weekend. All of the money raised for that could go toward, again, the foundation. It could be used for future programming, which is what we've outlined in the letter.
Great. I sent an email to all of you, but I would let just make an announcement that our winner of the Judge's Choice winner has agreed to do the big chair next year. So, and I cannot remember her name, but she's a high school student, and I just don't remember her name.
Laura.
Laura.
Yeah. Musai.
Right, right. But, so that was good news. She was thrilled to know that she could do that. She had entered the park and saw the big chair and said, oh, I would have loved to have painted that big chair. And I said, well, gee whiz, now you get the opportunity. So she's quite thrilled to do that. And I'm pleased that we have somebody lined up for next year. Great. Are there any other staff reports?
Nothing from staff.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll do committee updates, and we'll start with the Public Art Committee. Oh, who's giving the report? Oh, Bob.
He had such a nice email write-up.
Yeah. And she printed it out. Let's see, well, here's a brief recap of
Thank you.
what we went through. Let's see, we went through the revised work plan, which now includes the changes that we discussed in our work session in May. We briefly discussed Hawk Ridge Park construction and what our role is going to be in it. We discussed the idea of thinking about some type of group that includes someone from the Arts Commission as well as other aspects from the city to be kind of the face for Raymore when asking for money from prospective donors. That was something else that came up. Mike updated us about what we just went through with Summer Scene and Relax in Raymore, and which, by the way, yes, fantastic, by the way. Can't say kudos enough. We also thought about tackling another public art project between now and the end of this year, mainly because Hawk Ridge is far out. We don't want to just, wait. We'd rather get something going. I threw out the idea of a second mural. We have one targeted at the Recreation Park. And with some of the additional funds, maybe with some of the foundation money that we've just got, I'm not sure if that can float in to help create we don't really need to do another call for artists because we have a list of people we already like. We know our top ones. So maybe we go down that list, see who's available, see who, maybe revisit it, see who we like, and see if we can get something done, say, in the fall.
Did you target the location out at Rec Park? I mean, I know there's a concession stand. Is that?
Yes,
That
Pat
was-
and Harriet have looked at that in the past before they had targeted certain areas,
Okay.
and that was one of them.
Okay.
And that's it.
Are there any questions for Bob?
Yeah, did you have an idea on a theme for that mural? Or just,
At this point,
no.
No.
Harriet?
But the Memorial Park was sort of a memorial theme. So Recreation Park, and actually some of the submissions when the call for artists went out really had sort of sports themes anyway. So if we were to look at those applications from before, and the fact that it's in Recreation Park, sort of suggests a theme. And it's worked well with the previous commissions that the artists submit an idea from an overall kind of theme and then submit that to us. And we, in all three cases, have said, great, or made a couple of suggestions. So that's sort of the way the process has gone. But yeah, there are, I don't any longer have the applications that the artists sent in, but there were at least 5 that were in our sort of final, that would be appropriate. And mural, and this was a mural request before too, so.
Yeah, an outdoor mural.
Outdoor mural, yeah, so.
Were we thinking that, that this project might be done under this year's budget?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd like for it to be, I think the overall idea is we're going to get a lot of traffic there at Rec Park with the new center, activity center there, and of course with soccer, softball, baseball. You're going to have a lot of crowds there, and that would be just a perfect spot.
Did you say that you were going to put on the concession stand, though?
There's a wall, I believe, on the west side of the concession stand. I think that's what's targeted.
Because
However-
I feel like if we do it on the concession stand, the soccer group and anyone going to the new building are not going to see it, because that's pretty much right there by the softball and the baseball fields.
Right, I think
That's
there's.
only going to get the softball and baseball traffic.
I think there's basically two buildings that we're looking at there. One of them being
The
restroom.
the
and
restroom.
concession area right there at the beginning of those fields. And yeah, that is kind of a walk from the activity center. The other one is a restroom area. I'm not sure if that has concession as well or not at by the baseball diamonds.
Yeah,
just to the
that's the one I'm
south.
talking about.
Okay, we're actually talking about the ones closer to the soccer field. Yes.
Mike, is there, the new building that's almost completed, is there any opportunity for mural activity anywhere on that building or inside the building?
Inside the building, there will be some very limited space, and the only reason I say limited space is really there's not a great mural opportunity, because when you walk in, you'll have the lobby, and the lobby will have just a regular lobby with the reception area. As you get into the gymnasium, there definitely be some large white walls, but you probably do not want to put any public art in that area, as it could become and will become damaged very quickly with the activity that's going to be inside. Also, something to keep in mind with the activity center is one of those walls is designed and planned to be torn down because
For expansion.
for future expansion. And the idea is currently that we would have a second gymnasium attached to that building to expand as we continue to grow as a community. And so to identify, that wall would ideally, because it's the one that faces Madison, when you drive down there, you look at that and think that would be a great place for a mural right off Madison, welcoming folks into the park. But it is also the first wall that they will be probably taking down in the next 5 years.
Okay. Well, so I think that's a fabulous idea. I mean, I'd love to see that we use this unfunded money somehow, and if public art is, whether it's that or something different, my opinion is that we need to come up with some idea to expend those dollars. So please, any of you who have ideas, or Pat, you had a great idea, let's think about them and get them to Mike or Melissa or myself. I appreciate that. Any further comments for the Public Art Committee? Okay. Education Event Working Group. We didn't have an event, a Family Art Day in June because of the summer scene, but I'm going to let Lauren speak to our July 14th event, if you would, please.
Sure, thanks, Sharon. So in July, we are going to be partnering with Jim Heath from Rock You America, and he's going to be coming out and working with the kids, very similar to what Southland Conservatory did, where the kids can come out, play with the instruments a little bit. He's going to teach a little bit too. So it was something that we've been working to break up the monotony of what we had kind of been doing consistently. So this gives us something fresh, something new. So we're really excited. He's really excited because he didn't know that we did things like this. So this kind of gives him an opportunity to kind of spread his brand out there too. So I think it'll be a great partnership.
Great. And I think it'll be fun, something different. Arts and crafts are great, but we want to, have a variety of activities. So I'm looking forward to this, and we'll get with you, Melissa, to, design the Facebook page for, getting the ad out. And my opinion is that we don't charge for this, that we let the children come and experience this with no fee. What does everybody feel about that? I mean, I just think it would be a nice opportunity to see what the interest is, and
Would this be an event that, because we're not dealing with paint or anything, that we would want to hold at Centerview rather than the Park House?
gosh, that might be an opportunity. We could get more attendees then.
Even,
I mean-
even if we were to, just rent the Gilmore, I say rent, reserve the Gilmore
Right.
room, you still could have 15, 20 kids with the instruments in there. We remove all the tables and
Right.
everything. Or if we reserved Harrelson A, the smaller side, you could still have everything there with tables and chairs as well. But completely up to the task force or the group if that would be more
I think that would be a
appropriate.
great idea. I mean, it's not like we're giving a concert there, so the what's the word I'm searching for, Pat? The acoustics are not as critical as though it were a performance. But yeah, because that park house is great for arts and crafts, but it's small. So I think that would be fabulous. Yeah, by all means. I mean, if we could see if there's space available on the 14th of July, that would be wonderful.
I will take a look and get that done.
Great.
Jen, how long do we have the Park House for?
Most likely, once construction is done on the rack in August, they will decommission and then eventually demolish the Park House.
So maybe one more event we could do there before having to
Yeah.
find other places? Okay.
Okay. Are there any questions for the Education Task Force? Okay. All right, moving forward, we have one consent item tonight, and that's the agenda from the minutes from the April meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Are there any corrections or additions to those minutes? Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your hand. Okay, that's unanimous vote. That carries, that motion carries, and those minutes are approved. All right, on to, do we have any old business? I think we've kind of covered some items, but Mike?
I did just want to point out, although it's not necessarily on the agenda, I did include in your packet the presentation by our city attorney, Jonathan Zur. Just wanted to make sure that everyone had a copy, here even in the packet. I think it's really good information. It's great to review just as a nice refresher and a reminder that as a public body, there are certain rules that we need to abide by. So just wanted to point that out in the packet.
Thank you. All right, on to new business. The first item of new business is approval of the Arts Commission financial year work plan, 2019 work plan. And I do hope that all of you had an opportunity to review that plan carefully. As you know, in our work session, we went through and took a look at the existing work plan, made some modifications and additions to that work plan. Primarily, the biggest addition was the discussion about the formation of a performing arts committee and what our roles and responsibilities should be. So, Mike, I'm going to let you just review that particular section just to make sure we're all on the same page, because we do need to approve this tonight before we go to our joint meeting with the council on July 2nd. I'd like to have this work plan available to review with them. So before we make a motion to approve, could we just quickly review that? Mike?
Absolutely. So as you stated in kind of the introduction, Strategy 1 remains mostly unchanged, mostly pertaining to the public art plan, and the priorities behind the public art plan are attached at the back, and it kind of shows you from priority 1 on down to priority 5 and 6 what the Public Art Committee is looking to accomplish first. Project number 2 is the pop-up art project, and I will need to, that is a kind of a Scribner's error, I'll just need to update that to the 2019 pop-up art project, and then also continue the City Council Art Exhibit Program. We have had really good success with the window tinting at Centerview, and so excited to really be able to, everything that we're looking at shows that those UV rays are being stopped at the windows from that tinting. The artwork that we have up there is not fading. There's no discoloration even on the woodwork, and so really encouraged that that's going to be a place that we're going to have some flexibility to create an art gallery space. Strategy 2 is focused on increasing resources for the arts and kind of diversifying the base of public and private funding. Want to just ensure that we still have the support of the City Council and that we are working closely with the foundation to develop a fundraising plan. I think that goes a little bit to what Commissioner Lawrence was talking about, ensuring that we reach out to folks, not just here at the Arts Commission level, but also at the Park Board, the City Council level, and elsewhere, folks who have a vested interest in raising some money for other causes or other projects and causes within the city. And then also one area that I'd like to expand really is to identify and start applying for grants for the Arts Commission. Now that we have a 501c3 backing us as an organization, we have a few more grant opportunities open to us.
Excuse me, Mike. So any grants that we would apply for would come under the heading of the foundation and not the Arts Commission?
Correct.
Okay.
The initial funding would, and then the board, which consists of the City Council, would allocate that funding from a grant to the Arts Commission.
Okay.
Strategy 3, looking to continue the support of existing community art-related programs and provide incentives to incorporate additional artistic elements. Really looking to just broaden and deepen some of the relationships we already have in the community through, the Parks and Recreation Department, Tri-County Art League, and any other way that we can ensure that the programs that we are supporting as an Arts Commission or as a city, that not only is the Arts Commission receiving recognition, but then that we also invite those folks under Project 3, that we invite those folks back for a formal process to essentially report back to the Arts Commission. Here's what your money went to support, here's what we were able to do and accomplish, and just a kind of a general update so that we don't feel like we're necessarily sponsoring something and then never hearing back from that organization again.
Excuse me, Mike. If I could just interject here that one of the, and maybe I missed the thing where the next page talks about working with the Parks and Rec Department to identify different projects. I'd like to have a more formal process, and you had mentioned that possibly reporting periodically to us about things that they're doing, so we aren't, in the dark about what they're doing. I'm afraid of overlap or just, we need some synergy here, so.
Sure.
If you could speak to maybe a more formal process.
Mm-hmm. So currently, the Communications Department already meets fairly regularly with staff from the Parks and Recreation Department. Ms. McGee meets with the Recreation Superintendent, John McLean, to talk about upcoming programs and events that they have. And I meet with Nate Mustine, the director, fairly regularly as well, to talk about not just capital projects and construction projects going on in the parks, but also their programming and how the Arts Commission would be able to possibly either step in or support projects that they have going on. As it stands right now, what we are struggling with is really delineating and kind of drawing a line of where do we as a communications department and the Arts Commission provide and support programming, or where do we provide the networking and opportunities to find artists or art teachers to then funnel to the Parks and Recreation Department in order for them to really create the programming, do the contracting, and kind of do the staff level work. As it currently stands, we are hosting and we are managing everything from the logistics to the advertising of the Family Art Days, for example. If we were to expand any of that programming, the question that I ask, and I think that what we will begin to discuss either following the adoption of this work plan or into the next fiscal year, is how involved does the Arts Commission want to be in regularly programming and holding classes, contracting classes, or is that something where we want to act more as the connector with the Parks and Recreation Department, where we are out seeking those artists, those arts educators, and giving them the information of, if you're interested, for example, in a basic painting class, you want to teach a basic painting class, is that something that we would manage on the communication side, or do we offer that to Parks and Recreation and have them manage that rather than us getting into all of the individual classes? So that's going to be an ongoing discussion. I think that's going to be something that we're really going to want to see what their capacity is for managing that programming, especially if it's going to be specifically arts related. And they do already have some arts related programming that they host that if there is something we could be doing to help support that, grow that, we're definitely going to be open to hearing their suggestions as well.
Well, I guess we need to get through this, and then I'll ask for a motion to approve, and then we can have an open discussion from the commissioners about any points they'd like to talk about before we approve.
If any commissioner would like to make a change to the plan as it stands, the proposed plan, and once I get through the whole plan, what I want to do is just kind of go through a real quick how to make an amendment.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about if you have any edits or changes to the proposed plan, there's a way that we can do that from this meeting and still be able to approve the overall plan.
Okay.
If everyone's comfortable. I don't want anyone to feel like it has to get done that way, but I just wanted to kind of give you an easy way to get through and approve it.
Okay.
Strategy 4 really is the new strategy. And what it focuses on is increasing any of the opportunities for performance art. And we didn't want to limit this, at least from what I heard from the discussion, to just music. We wanted to ensure that this included all performance art, theater, oratory, any kind of small or large events. And so we tried to encapsulate the discussion as much as we could to include, whether this is the creation of a performance committee, and giving direction to that performance committee that one of the first projects would be defining the roles and responsibilities of a performance committee. What would that committee be doing and looking at? One of the first projects that I also believe that performance committee would need to be, or would want to undertake, and kind of what I read from the discussion was evaluating and exploring what venues we have available to us here in Raymore. And maybe not just even here in Raymore, but in the Ray-Pec School District, just even in the area where, even though Centerview may acoustically not be the best venue because of the concrete floor and the sound system that is available there have to be other venues in the area. And I would like us to have a good roster of what those are, so that if we do have an artist that comes to us and says, I would like to do, a spoken word style event, we should be able to have a roster of what venues would be best for that and how we could best support that as staff, and how you all would be able to be involved as the commission. The next project that I think is also going to be important, and this is the project that Commissioner Setzer had spoken about earlier, finding a way to include some sort of a participatory performance program, whether that's through the sing-along or, and I believe the example that was used at the work session in May was a holiday type of event or something. Absolutely open to that and want to kind of research any and all possibilities. Those were the three major projects under that area. Then the next page following that is the Parks and Trails Public Plan Overview. And then that final page includes the trail art priority. And then also I think it's going to be important because I want to be able to send this whole work plan to the council next month, but includes the completed works of art and their date of completion that this commission has seen here in the last 3 years. And so I think it's going to be important that we highlight not only what we have coming forward, but what we have behind us already. Any questions about the plan and projects?
Do we have any more data on Hawk Ridge Park about the idea of musicals? It was pretty preliminary, like just any more information on size and
So the most recent, and this is why it gets difficult, is because as we're looking at the cost of construction, construction costs are going up and down wildly. And so as we have bid out the project and are working with not only our architect consultant, but also our construction consultant, we're really trying to hone in the best way to provide a quality performance space on budget. And what we have come up with is a number of options. And these options range from, what I'm trying to remember what we initially had. It was a 30-foot stage. One of the options was a 70-foot stage that would have expanding kind of these baffling items on the side so that the stage could either shrink or grow depending on the type of performance space. A stage that would be incorporated into the side of the hill so that as you're looking at the stage, you would see it, it'd be a riser of about 2.5, 3 feet, but the hill would kind of make everything look to grade on the wings and near the back so that it would be ADA accessible, but also kind of incorporate into the hill and then back into the lake. So there are still some questions that we have out there that our engineers are looking into, that our consultants are working on, and my plan is to have those plans in hand by our next meeting. But again, as I said, it really all depends on what we're able to bring in on budget, what we're able to truly provide. But the group that we're working with is really trying to, like I said, provide a quality performance space for what we are intending to do. Use it as a performance space, not as just a shelter.
Pat, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else on that particular topic? I'm sorry, Lauren?
Not that particular topic,
Oh.
just something within the discussion. So I know our arts commission is relatively new in comparison to like parks, so they've taken on a lot of the things that you would think that an arts commission probably would do. And I was wondering, with some of these things, like the farmers market music and some of the other programming, if there was a way to create more of a partnership so that, we're not repeating the same things, I guess, and maybe if we are, maybe we could partner to make a bigger event for everybody, kind of that, going in that direction more so than them doing one thing, us doing another thing, and really we're doing the exact same thing.
That's kind of what I was alluding to before, was that we need to have more interaction with them, and not just help them fund something, but actually have the opportunity to come up with ideas, not necessarily that we're gonna, contract with the band or, make arrangements, but just so that, we have more of input into the arts that they're gonna have at the farmer's market. That's why I think it's important to have some kind of interaction with the Parks and Rec department, and I'm sure we're gonna do that, so thanks. That's okay. Mike, did you want to just review quickly if we wanted to make any amendments before we proceed with the formal
Yes,
motion?
so the plan you have in front of you is what you will overall be voting on. And so if there are no changes that need to be made to the proposed plan, you would be able to, from the dais, make a motion, second, and vote to approve the plan. If there are any items within the plan that you specifically would like to change or amend, any commissioner can propose an amendment. And while the process would be much like you would be making a motion on the plan itself, you would propose, I amend strategy 1, project 1 to say this. Then the whole commission would need to vote on that amendment. So we essentially could be voting on, if there are multiple changes, we could be voting multiple times on each of those individual changes. And then once we finish with the changes, we could come back to the full proposed plan as amended and vote overall on the plan for a final vote. But like I said, if the proposed plan as is acceptable to the commission, there could definitely be a motion and a second to vote on the proposed plan, but any amendments we would need to vote on individually. before, yes.
That's why I was hoping everybody had an opportunity to read through it very carefully before tonight. So the idea is right now to ask for the commissioners if there's any proposed amendments or changes that we need to vote on before we go to the motion to approve the final plan. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, with that, are there any corrections, additions, modifications, amendments that any of the commissioners would like to propose at this time? Harriet?
I don't know what this is, but, of those things, but the attachment, the public art plan overview, I think we need to move the rec park concession stand to, up to 1. And is that, I mean, is it really, do we have to go through the process for that, because it's really an attachment?
Because this is the Public Art Committee's for a process, this wouldn't necessarily need to be included in the proposed plan. This was really more of an informational piece behind the proposed plan. So if the Public Art Committee would like to revise and change their priority list, we can certainly do that at the next meeting. That does not need to be done here.
So we're not doing
Right.
that now? Okay. But actually, we should have done it last week, right?
Right.
Okay.
But now we'll have something to talk about at
Oh,
the
my
next meeting.
gosh, and we need something, yes. Thank you.
Any other, oh, Pat?
Yeah, I just wanted a clarification on the public art plan overview, which looks like all the ones we've had before. Sometimes something occurs, something changes in building deadlines and things and priorities with other things within the city, and that makes us change. We've always been able to have the flexibility to do that, and I thought that still existed, that we didn't have to, we can still be able to, we have everything listed, but we can respond in a timely way.
Absolutely,
That-
absolutely.
I just want to make sure. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioner discussion? Lauren?
Just kind of goes back to what I was saying, Strategy 3, Project 1, which is the musical performances at the farmers market. Wanted to see, if we could amend that to, and I'm sure this would have to be a conversation with Parks and Recs as well, but an amendment that partners this more than just being a donor.
If you look in the notes section, it basically says that the Parks and Rec Department is responsible for hiring the artists.
I think I mentioned this at our last work session, that the recreation coordinator, Katie Patrick, is more than willing to take your suggestions. Absolutely. And she doesn't have everything scheduled throughout the entire summer, so she wants to hear from you. If you want to put that through me or Mike first, that would be great.
So,
I ideally would like to keep contracting and selection and payment with Parks and Recreation, because the farmers market also is a separate budget from Parks and Recreation. And so there is a purposeful accounting that happens that I would rather they do the staff work. From a city perspective, that just is much easier.
Right, and I think we all agree with that. I think we just all want to be able to give input.
And absolutely nothing is restricting our ability to provide input on those artists. We just have not received any input.
Becky, is that satisfactory? Lauren? Okay. Harriet?
Well, I'm just thinking you could add, under the notes, Parks and Rec will be responsible with the recommendation from the, whatever it's called.
Parks and Rec.
No, the music committee now. What is it called?
Oh.
Performance, yes.
Well, we don't have an official committee yet, so I wouldn't want to put that in on the work plan because we haven't actually formed a committee yet.
Didn't we?
No, we
No, we
did
didn't.
not.
Okay.
That's part of the proposed work plan, is that we consider forming a separate committee. But we haven't actually formed one. We talked about it, but we didn't, so. So the wording on that, oh, I'm sorry, Pat?
I think the intent of this is if I understood it correctly, was that we wanted to know what we were paying for, we wanted to have some input, but we don't want to be the booking agent.
Right.
That we're trying to make that separate, and we don't, that's the only thing that we're trying to say, is that if you come to us and ask us things, we might say yes, or we might say no. We would like to have input other than give us some money.
And Parks and Recreation has already expressed that they are absolutely interested in any input
Yeah.
from the Arts Commission, whether that comes through a formal process or if it is just an email sent through staff to Parks and Recreation. They absolutely are open to any of those ideas.
So do we need to amend that?
I don't believe we do,
I
no.
don't think so.
Okay. We're all in agreement on that? We don't need to actually amend the wording on that? Okay. All right. Are there any other points of discussion before we consider this? Anybody else? All right, with that, since there appears to be no modifications, amendments, may I have a motion to approve the proposed work plan?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right, those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, that is a unanimous vote for the proposed work plan, and that motion has been carried. Thank you all. All right, the final new business that we need to vote on tonight is the amendment to the bylaws affecting voting. And Mike, could you just briefly go through that?
This was something that was pointed out to us was pointed out to staff by our city attorney. Currently, the Arts Commission bylaws require all votes to have at least 4 affirmative votes to pass an item from the agenda. And in the memo that I provided at the very last page of your packet, it has what currently Article 6H in the bylaws includes. To be effective, a board action must be adopted by an affirmative vote of the number of members necessary to provide a quorum. For this body, that is 4 members. And the reason this was pointed out was because in the past, and it seems kind of odd now that we have finally a full commission of all 7 seats filled, but there were a couple of months there where we had really only a quorum of 4 members that were present, or whether folks were in or out. And so what was happening was we had some votes that were coming in as 4-0. Now, if for some reason we had, again, that same situation where we had a quorum so we could conduct business, but a vote came out 3-1, even though it had the majority, according to our bylaws, it would not pass. I went back through the last 2 years' worth of votes, and we luckily were 4-0, or at least at a minimum 4-0. And so there's nothing we need to go back and really revisit, but it did open up the question of, we really want to place an importance on the number of commissioners that are here, and that majority to pass legislation or to pass items really should rest with the majority of members that are present, rather than a strict 4-0 vote of the entire body. The hope is, and though it sounds incredibly complicated and very nuanced, it is kind of important, at least from a staff perspective, just because we want to ensure that the work that we are providing to the commission is being voted on in a timely manner, and that there's not any complications or any eyebrows raised when something comes out with a 3-1 vote, but it failed. So that was kind of our hope, was to clean up the bylaws. Because this is a bylaw amendment, it does require 2/3 approval to pass.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve this bylaw change?
Point of order, is there any questions?
Okay, I thought that came after I asked for a motion to approve.
No.
That's, okay. Are there any questions by any of the commissioners? Okay. Now, may I have a motion to approve this bylaw change?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, before we adjourn, are there any commissioner comments from anyone? Bob?
Just a quick question. Mike, do we have a camera available, since we do have everybody here?
I do. I say I have my phone. Would be more than happy to take a picture of the full group.
Great.
If-
That would be,
Love to update that.
yes, that would be nice. So we'll take a quick minute after we adjourn and get photos. Are there any other questions or comments from any of the commissioners? Lauren?
I just want to say thank you again to Melissa for sweating, melting, however you want to word it, this Saturday. It's definitely a great event. Everybody that was there to help volunteer, it was a lot of fun. It was great to see, you know, so many of the people in the community come out and participate and kind of, you know, see something fresh, something new. So, you know, thank you, Melissa. Mike, of course, thank you. And to the team, thank you guys too.
Yes, I do want to stress again that Melissa worked her buns off, so thank you. And I just love seeing the families playing those games. I think that addition of the games was a great thing. At one point, you know, there was a huge crowd around that big Jenga. Is that what it's called? Oh my goodness, that was quite something. But thank you again, and to everybody, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Okay. With that, I'll ask for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, unanimously adjourned. Thank you very much.
Let's do, let's have everyone, if you could stand in front of the seal and I'll move the microphones here.